Any football fan worth their salt will know about the sublime talents of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I mean, you probably follow him on social media just for the comedy value alone, right? Across his stellar career, the Swede made a name for himself as someone with a remarkable inclination for the sublime. A player who was just as comfortable beating 2 or 3 players and placing it as he was scoring ridiculous overhead kicks. However, you're also probably aware that as successful as he was throughout his career, he never managed to lift the one trophy that most players crave more than any other, the Champions League. So, how did that happen, or not happen in Zlatan's case? Known for his outrageous ego and big personality, the young Zlatan started his career at hometown club Malmö. His talent and potential was such that he wasn't long for the Swedish league, and he was soon on his way to bigger and better things in the Netherlands with Ajax. Of course, Ajax have an illustrious history, but it's safe to say their golden period of the mid-90s was well over by the time Zlatan rocked up in 2001. I mean, that 95 team, right? Ibra raised eyebrows across Europe in August 2004 as he scored one of the greatest individual goals you're ever likely to see. Having beaten 5 or 6 NAC Breda players with dummy after dummy, he managed to also outwit the keeper to put Europe's big boys on full alert. It's safe to assume we're all probably on the same page about this one being one of the greatest goals of all time. At the end of that season, and with 2 Dutch titles to his name, Zlatan was on the move again, this time to Juventus. It was widely accepted that a player of his ability needed to play in one of Europe's big leagues, thus giving himself a chance of glory on the European stage. At this point in his career, you yourself were probably thinking it was just a matter of time before the big man was crowned a Champions League winner. Zlatan's Champions League dreams were marred by Juventus' involvement in the 2006 Calciopoli scandal, which led to their demotion to Serie B. The fallout forced Juventus to offload star players, including Zlatan, to regain financial stability. As a result of this relegation, Inter Milan saw the opportunity to acquire his services, and there was not much pushback from the old lady. Without this scandal, I think it's fair to say Zlatan's time at Juventus would have been marked by domestic success, with 2 Serie A titles, but despite his tremendous talent and performance, Zlatan couldn't guide Juve to European triumph. Inter were the closest challengers to Juve's dominance around this time, and under Roberto Mancini, they were able to wrestle back their status as Italy's best. The addition of Ibra certainly helped too, and the San Siro brought out some of the best football of the Swede's career. More league success followed, but following the arrival of Jose Mourinho, the big man found himself on the way out, with Samuel Eto'o going the other way in a swap deal. With Barca reigning European champions, it was surely only a matter of time before his Champions League dream was realised. In retrospect, the decision to leave Inter might not seem so great considering what Mourinho went on to do in 2010. But Ibra wasn't to know what would transpire, as the Portuguese masterminded one of the more unlikely Champions League wins of the 21st century. And anyway, he was off to Barcelona to play with Messi. Like, who in their right mind would bet against him winning the big one now? After one relatively successful season in Spain, in which he added yet another league title, as well as scoring 21 in 45, Zlatan was again on the move, this time back to Italy to break the hearts of Inter fans by signing for their most hated rival, AC Milan, for the 2010 to 2011 season. Ironically, this would arguably be the closest he would ever come to winning the Champions League, and Milan were knocked out in the last 16. Of course, you will remember that his parents' club, Barcelona, went on to win the trophy that season with a 2-0 win over Manchester United in the final. Having not played any games for Barca in the competition that year, Zlatan was ineligible for a medal. He must have been kicking himself, right? His loan move to AC Milan was made permanent the following year, which you would think would have given him another good chance of being crowned European champion. And in some regards, it did. That year was Ibrahimovic's most prolific to date, from a purely goal-scoring point of view. And Milan were going well on all fronts too. Having been part of the league-winning team during his loan spell the year before, of course, you probably would have given him fair odds of having a real good go at the Champions League. Milan comfortably qualified from Group H that year, second behind Zlatan's old club Barcelona, and were looking in decent shape after disposing of Arsenal in the last 16. However, unfortunately for the Rossoneri, they would again face the Catalan Giants in the quarter-finals where they became unstuck, losing 3-1 on aggregate. I mean, this was the peak Messi era, so no one was too surprised at that. That Barcelona team is often spoken of the best ever, which you may or may not agree with. So, another season, another Champions League disappointment. But by the early 2010s, there was a metaphorical storm brewing in France. You remember when Qatar bought PSG back in the summer of 2011, right? Well, just like we're seeing now with Saudi Arabia, they were keen to finance their new operation and sanction some marquee signings. It just so happened that our boy Zlatan was at the top of that list. So, off to Paris he went for what looked like a solid opportunity at bagging his maiden Champions League. In theory, it was probably a safe bet too. The Qatari owners were willing to pump millions into the team, and on paper, they had put together a group of players who looked like they would challenge. In reality though, it never quite happened, and still hasn't for the Qataris in Paris nor Zlatan. Of course, his obligatory league titles came at a canter. 4 of them, in fact. But you know as well as I do, winning the French league isn't really seen as a great marker of success in a world-class footballer's career. He was there for the big one. PSG were dumped out in the quarterfinals on the away goals rule by Zlatan's former employers and perennial tormentors, Barcelona. The following season, it was Chelsea's turn to inflict pain on the big Swede at the same stage. Jump forward another season, and Barcelona were once again the source of Zlatan's Champions League woes, before Manchester City put them out for the 4th season in a row at the quarter-final stage in 2015 to 2016. At this point in Zlatan's career, at 34 years old, it was beginning to look like it was never going to happen for him in Europe's premier competition. This, one of football's biggest travesties. And sadly, this way of thinking was all but confirmed by the man himself, as he decided to head to England and Manchester United, who weren't offering Champions League football. Being Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he was almost certainly of the opinion that he could single-handedly take United back to the pinnacle of European football. But this was a club in such disarray that even the mighty Zlatan couldn't breathe life into them. He did manage some European success, however, including a Europa League title. But his run of league title wins was well and truly over. I mean, as much as we all love Zlatan Ibrahimovic, it tells you something about the world he lives in, thinking he could go to Manchester United during that period and be in with a serious chance of winning the Premier League or Champions League. Ibra would leave Manchester in 2018, seemingly for semi-retirement in the USA, choosing to apparently see out the remainder of his career with LA Galaxy. However, after 2 seasons stateside and at the grand old age of 37, the legendary Swede decided to have one more stab at the big time, re-signing for AC Milan in 2019. Most people expected that he would only be a bit part player at San Siro. But he ended up playing 4 more seasons, scoring 37 in 78, almost a goal a game. Sadly, Milan were nowhere near the force they once were on the European scene. However, they nearly provided a shock last season as they fell to City rivals Inter in the semis. In his final season, this is the furthest he would come to gracing a Champions League final in his career. Zlatan Ibrahimovic won a colossal amount of medals during his career, and not just with the various clubs he turned out for. A maverick from the very start, he also owns a slew of individual medals, including no fewer than 11 Ballon d'Or nominations. Pretty impressive, right? The big man was also part of the Euro 2012 Team of the Tournament, Serie A Footballer of the Year on 3 occasions, and part of the UEFA Team of the Year 4 times, amongst many, many more. As I've pointed out, the fact that Zlatan never managed to win the Champions League is one of the biggest injustices in the history of football. A supreme talent such as Ibra simply deserves to have his name etched into history, especially when you consider some of the more inferior players who have won it before him. There will always be plenty in the coming years who will win it who probably won't be fit to lace the great man's boots. Whatever Zlatan decides to do next in his career remains to be seen. Will he go into coaching or management in a bid to finally bring his hoodoo to an end? I'm not so sure about that one. Non-conformists, free spirits like Ibra don't tend to do well in management and rarely get along with owners. It would be great to see him finally get his hands on the trophy though. Give us your thoughts in the comments on Ibra, and why not let us know some other true greats of the game who have never lifted the famous old trophy. As usual, thanks for dropping by today, and remember to tune in again next time when we'll be discussing some more fun bits and pieces. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Bye guys!